Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is January the 12th, 2024, and it is Friday night, and it is the Wise Guys, and welcome to the first episode of Wise Guys 2.5 and the debut for 2024. So first of all, Happy New Year to everyone out there, and I want to bring in my co-host with the most, Nostra dumbass himself, Mr. James Cornetti, JC Blue Note, and Jim. Happy New Year to you, sir.
Happy New Year, although this is going to be the last time that anyone is allowed to say that because you figure after the end of the first full week, you really shouldn't be saying it anymore.
I say it to people I haven't talked to. I mainly said it tonight because we're on the air for the first time in this year. Because I like talk to you almost every day.
Yeah, but when you work in customer service and people are, if it's like the middle of January and people are still saying Happy New Year, it's like, no, that was a couple of weeks ago.
I want to throw hands with you now. So, as I mentioned,
you gotta bow up a little bit. You gotta bow up.
So, as I mentioned, it is the live debut of Wise Guys 2.5 when we actually have a format. Holy shit. And we are going to keep to it. We are going to open up with what we're going to call the Wise Guys hat trick. And yes, that is an ode to Jim's favorite sport in the world, and that is ice hockey. As he mentioned in our...
It's going to flip-flop. So this week it's the hat trick. Next week it's going to be the Wise Guys triple play.
That's true. That's very true. And the triple play next week. Or we just call it
the hat trick triple play.
We'll figure something out.
Yeah.
And again, Marshawn Lynch. So
for those of you who don't know, that is our new Chris Everett, especially with the news that we actually had at the end of the 2023 episode.
And we're tired of taking from Goldhammer and Rizzo, so we're no longer going to use Brett Michaels. So Marshawn Lynch is our new answer for everything. So we got 3 topics we're going to hit you with in the first half of the show, and then we're going to take our short little break because I didn't have time to get my caffeine, dude. This is going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly. So let's jump off the bat and let's talk about the craziest shit going on in the sports world today, and that is the coaching carousel that is college football and the NFL. I mean, Jim, we talked about this off the air. We figured that Belichick was going to be done. We figured that there was change coming elsewhere. You know, you had Brandon Staley was fired by the Chargers basically at halftime of the game against the Raiders when they got the piss beat out of them by 80. You knew Ron Rivera was going to be gone. You knew Arthur Smith was going to be gone down there in Atlanta. You have Blank in there. Blank's the owner.
Yeah, I always get them mixed up.
Well, it's okay. Remember, Blank owns the Falcons. Smith's daddy owns FedEx. You don't need to fix it, dude. We know what we're talking about. You just fixed it. Okay, whatever.
I want to get it right. If it's gonna be up on the screen, because we're doing for the hat trick, the first half of the show, we're doing 3 15-minute segments.
Yeah, and so this one here, this could be 2 segments, but we're just going to keep it to 15 minutes. And I want to start really with the the one that blew our minds. And you actually called me during dinner the other night to tell me what had happened. And that is the sudden retirement of Alabama head coach Nick Saban. And today's announcement that what's his first name? Was it Kalen DeBoer? Kate DeBoer, the former Washington head coach who just coached in the national championship game, is now the head coach at Alabama as he leaves Washington. So, Jim, let's talk about that one first. Then I want to jump into Belichick in New England, if we could.
Yep.
So, your first impression of Saban leaving, and who do you think got the first phone call? Sark or Dabo?
I really think it was Sark, and I was not all that surprised because I believe you and I talked just before the playoff, just before New Year's, that really everything that's up there. The reason why Mike called me Nostra dumbass, note for the nickname, but I predicted every single one of those over the course of being on the phone with you and also with family for the last week and a half.
Except Vrabel. I think that one surprised a lot more people.
I said Vrabel
really?
was going to get fired to Tennessee.
I'm shocked at that.
Yeah, I said that Vrabel coming off a 5-11 year, I said, don't be the least bit surprised if Mike Vrabel gets fired.
You know what? You did say that. I apologize.
Every single yeah, the Saban and Carroll thing, uh, and and uh, and Belichick, you got to keep in mind that all those guys are now in their early 70s, so you knew the clock was ticking on all of them. Saban, I had a feeling with them losing because the game has just kind of passed him by. He's already, I don't want to say passed him by because he's gotten to another, CFP playoff. He's had another 10-win season, which is a record. And I mean, he's not going to catch the all-time, he's not going to catch Paterno's all-time record. Nobody ever will at this point. But you had to figure something like that was expected. And this is one of his most impressive jobs with Jalen Milroe as his quarterback. Um, you know, we'll talk about whether or not they deserve to be in the playoff with, when we do our rewind here in the next segment. Um, but I kind of think that again, it was a long time coming. I'm actually just surprised it was this quick. But I did tell you on the phone the other day, as after we saw the Pete Carroll thing, I said, "Don't be the least bit surprised if Belichick steps down along with Saban because of how good of friends they are."
Yeah,
Going
and
back
I
to the
think
Cleveland days.
yeah, and that clip has been played a bunch of those two against the Dallas Cowboys, hugging each other at the end of the game, a 19-14 win by the Cleveland Browns that day, way back when. So I just want to comment on Saban real quick. Am I a fan of the guy? I respect him. He is the greatest college football coach of all time. I respect the hell out of him. Do I think in his 17 years at Alabama, he did get the benefit of some bias in the media and the polls? Absolutely, he did.
Absolutely.
I mentioned it to you on the phone the other day. You told me I sound like a hater, but then I backed it up with fact, like I try and do. Nick Saban has national championships he never should have played for. Did he earn them on the field? Yes, they won those games, 100%. It should not have been them and LSU in that championship game in one of the last BCS seasons, which is how we got the playoff. And I'm sorry, in 2017, that team that played no one inside the top 10 and won those games did not belong in the playoff. Now, yes, they won it, beating a down Clemson team and, not for nothing, uh, beating Dabo in the championship game after changing quarterbacks. So, yeah, he won 7 national championships, 6 at Alabama, of course, the one at LSU in the BCS era. So, yes, he is the greatest college football coach we've ever seen. I don't think anybody will surpass him. No one's really on the track to do that now, especially not the guy who hung his first trophy this year. But yeah, he's got a couple of titles he did not earn the right to play for, in my opinion. Um, you know, just from my own bias standpoint, with them playing LSU in that 2011 championship, we should have seen Ohio State Michigan game of the century part 2 in 2006. Because one lost to 2 on one's home field by 3 points, which is exactly what happened in the LSU Bama game a few years later. So again, hats off, Coach Saban. You a phenomenal career. And by the way, it seems that him and his wife are even better people than he was a coach
Yes.
from some of the stories coming out now. So college football not only lost its greatest coach, it may have lost one of the few gentlemen left in the game. So hats off to Nick Saban on the greatest college football coaching career we've ever seen. And of course, listen, he was on staff with the Browns, on staff at Ohio State, Bowling Green, Michigan State, LSU. Of course, he left LSU, went to the Dolphins, and then came to Alabama and just turned that program, which was downtrodden, into a juggernaut.
Yes.
Let's move over to his counterpart in the pros, his former head coach to his DC in Cleveland, and Bill Belichick. And Jim, I want to get your take on this more than anything because you have been associated with the Browns longer than me. And this is where Belichick got his start as a head coach. What was your thoughts when you saw that pop up right before you sent the screenshot to me?
Um, what took him so long? I
Seriously.
literally I just posted a sports note about 90 minutes ago, and the video literally went up 10 minutes before we went live tonight. Um, 302 head coaching wins right now, third all time. I want to say he's 26 behind Don Shula for most all time. He's 16 behind George Halas for second. His 30 postseason wins are far and away more than anybody else. Tom Landry second with 20. I believe Belichick blew past that about a decade ago. These six Super Bowl wins, nobody's ever going to touch coaching, being the head coach in 10 Super Bowls. Nobody's ever going to touch, I want to say 4 or 5 coach of the years. He is the greatest NFL head coach, regardless of whether he gets the record or not. But the analogy that I made is that Bill Belichick is 71 years old. Bill Belichick has not been the same since Brady left 4 years ago, and he's also just come off his worst season as a head coach in his career. The Patriots are going to be picking third. Name the last time that happened, in April's draft, and then
I know that. Drew
I,
Bledsoe.
I know you do, yeah. But I think I he's been kind of playing with house money, but the analogy that I made is that as much young blood as they have there, it's not a reciprocating effect. Is that he's got young blood to be able to try and, build, but a 71-year-old coach is not going to be around for a rebuild, and they are not going to try. Their young blood is not going to basically be like a fountain of youth and miraculously make Bill Belichick, even 65 years old again when they were still contending for Super Bowls.
No, I agree with you, and I will say this: Belichick. You know, I've made the comment. Now, I grew up a Jet fan, so a Patriots coach to me is just almost as bad as the guys up north. But um, having said that, you have to again respect it. You have to respect it. I will say this: 4 of those Super Bowls have league-wide suspension attached to them
Yes.
and fines. So the debate won't be had, but it should be. Yes, he retires. Well, we don't even know if he's retiring. We just know he's leaving the New England Patriots.
Yeah, because the
Um,
door's still kind of open with his exit presser, but honestly, who's going to take a chance on that, knowing that he's probably going to have to walk away in a few years?
if the Dallas Cowboys get the piss beat out of him, Jerry Jones.
I would like to see him get the record, but we gotta keep in mind because I think that's all he's going to really want to coach for. I think he's starting to think that he wants that record, but you got to realize it's going to take 3 to 5 years worth of playoff caliber performance to be able to get there, to be able to get 26 wins.
If Dallas can keep that roster together, he's got it there.
This is going to be interesting, especially with the fact that right now, as it well, until the Patriots hired Gerard Mayo earlier today, which I think is a brilliant, brilliant move for them.
But it
Um,
shocks me a little bit, to be very honest with you.
I don't think so because I think he's been the very heir apparent there. And I think the next domino to fall in terms of a coach getting hired, I think they're going to take the interim tag off of Pierce in Las Vegas. And I
Good
also
move.
think they're going to do the same thing with Bieniemy in Washington and finally give him his due.
I think that would be 2 very smart decisions. It's not that I disagree with Gerard Mayo, but let's get to what I said in my TikTok that I put up. By the way, 735 views in less than 2 hours. Um, did you push something?
Sorry
Thought
about
you
that.
pushed. No, you're good. I thought you were pushing like the level up thing or something. I was like, oh, I got to level up already.
No, no, you got the applause.
Oh, okay, thank you. So uh let's talk about the guy who I thought was going to end up in New England. And the TikTok I put out was, talking about the new format, what we were going to do in the beginning, and then I asked this question. With a new AD coming in to Columbus, Does this AD take the chance, fire Ryan Day, who, by the way, again, is 56-7, and hire a Buckeye, not only alumnus, not only former defensive coordinator, but a damn good and successful NFL coach in Mike Vrabel to become the new face of Ohio State football? Jim, I know your opinion on this. You think Ryan Day should be gone. I disagree, just from the recruiting standpoint. And especially what he's done with convincing guys to stay and the transfer portal this year. So I want to get somebody who's not Buckeye biased to weigh in on that. So what do you think?
I think if you're going to let Ryan Day go, and I'm going to give you the last say on this, as I can see the timer's kind of running down on this segment here. But I think if you're going to let him go, remember, I think you and I talked about this. I also talked about this with my dad, and I think you and my dad talked about this in the aftermath. If you let him go, I think Vrabel was the only option, because your original thought when I kept bringing up Ryan Day's name possibly getting axed was, who's going to replace him? Who do you get? Who's more Buckeye royalty right now than Mike Vrabel? Because he's not taking the New England job. That's already been filled. So where else are you going to go?
My whole thing is, if Vrabel says he's taking a year off, Day only has this season. And if he doesn't beat Michigan and he doesn't win the Big Ten, and let me say this, that's a little unfair with the expanded Big Ten now. Mike Vrabel will be the head coach of the Ohio State Buckeyes come 2025. Let's see what Vrabel does. I could see Vrabel in San Diego with something he's never had.
That would be nice, but I still think I don't see any way that Vrabel's going to take a gap year, whether somebody else is going to snatch him up right away, or if he's going to have a job in Columbus. He's not taking a gap year.
You know, they call the gap year in the Mennonite community Rumspringa. Start watching Letterkenny, you'll get the joke.
Yeah. I got to haul ass on it with all my other shows coming back.
So, is that the end of the segment?
That would be the end of the segment. Well, you know what that means?
Yes. Shout out to Ross Geller and his couch. He couldn't get up the stairs. So as part of our new format, we are only going to spend 15 minutes on a topic. We will come back to this probably in the second half of the show, as we are possibly debuting a new segment and everybody's favorite, the Wisey Translator. So let's get the number 2. And
so you know what that means? When we finish one segment, you know what we have to do?
What do we have to do?
I couldn't do one without the other.
You can't do one without the other. But we should do that if one of us starts going over when the 15 minutes is done.
Yeah, and it's actually nice to be back, this week. You know why?
We were on a break.
You beautiful bastard.
We're going to be on another one next week, I think.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Let's see what happens this week with all this shit.
We'll address that in the second half of the show.
So let's get into the second thing, which is a topic that I'm really not fond of. But it happened. And on Monday night, tip the cap, Jim Harbaugh wins his first national title in a rout of Pac-12 champion and only other undefeated team, Washington. But Jim, I want to talk symmetry real quick, and then we'll get into the game. The first college football playoff, Big Ten team beats Alabama and then beats a Pac-12 team in a laugher to win a national title. And in the final year of the 14 playoff, we get the same thing. A one-score win by a Big Ten champion, then beating the Pac-12 champion by multiple scores. So I watched the highlight packages from the Rose Bowl and from the Sugar Bowl and from the national championship game. I will say this. The Rose Bowl was ugly as sin. That was an ugly, ugly game.
Yes.
As much as college football's the culture of college football has passed Nick Saban by.
Also, going
He would
forward, ladies and gentlemen, if you see my screen shaking, it's my new stylus. So rather than actually like jotting something down, I'm actually writing it right on the screen here.
Yo, homeboy's got this new Chromebook, and it's just like ass kicking. It's the Chromebook I want when I grow up. Anyway, um, let me say this: if Saban's team doesn't play a sloppy game, we're not talking about Jim Harbaugh winning a national championship. We're not. I'm sorry. Bama's unforced errors cost them the Rose Bowl. That being said, JJ McCarthy made some play on that ball, the double pass. I don't know how he did it. I mean, that was one of the most athletic plays from a quarterback I've ever seen. Listen, it was a great game. It was a one-score game that went to overtime. It was a phenomenal game. But the
Both
game of the
sides
day was the Sugar Bowl.
fantastic.
The game of the day was the Sugar Bowl.
Oh, without question. But both of those semifinal games were absolutely fantastic.
Let me tell you something right now. Michael Penix played himself into a first-round pick.
Oh, he was already a first round pick, but now actually he kind of played himself into lottery status, which means he's going to get drafted by a team that didn't make the playoffs last year.
I think that's a safe bet.
But then
He
again, let's
played
also see what
phenomenal.
the combine looks like in the next month and a half.
And let's see if he throws at the combine, to be very honest with
Yeah.
you. Hey, listen, he went to Indiana, so maybe he does throw in Indianapolis. Who knows?
Right.
The national championship game was a laugher, as most of the national championship games in the 14 playoff era have been.
Yes.
You have blowouts in the first one and the last one. Ohio State took one on the chin against that Alabama team, which, you know, the entire offense went in the first fucking round of the draft.
Yeah.
What else? Bama smoked somebody, or LSU smoked Clemson that year. When Clemson won their second title with their one with Trevor Lawrence, that was a laugher. Beating Alabama and Tua in that game pretty handily. So it marked the end of the first, well, let's call this the invitational era, because it wasn't a playoff.
Right.
It was an invitational. It was, hey, these 13 people think you should play for this, and we're going to give you a giant gold football, and then you can, talk shit for the next year. I honestly believe that was Jim Harbaugh's final game on the sideline in Michigan.
There's a lot of people that suspect that, and that's why I think Vrabel doesn't go to Los Angeles, because I got a feeling that Harbaugh is going to want that job.
And that's what I actually said to John when I was watching his stream the one night, which sounds funny to me. Sorry. I got to turn the soundboard on. But I was watching his stream the one night, and I had said to him, I said, I honestly didn't think Michigan was going to win that game. I didn't. I thought Washington had enough in the tank to beat them. I was shocked when they didn't. But again, that's a very, very good Michigan team.
What's funny is that, and I'm not throwing shade here, Michigan went with what brought them to the dance in that game and what actually helped them beat Ohio State the last 3 years and then be dominant in the Big Ten title game. They relied on their running game.
They did. Now, that's going to change next year. Is McCarthy coming back, or is he done?
I believe he might have another year of eligibility, but I don't know if he's going to necessarily come out. But I know that Corum's gone.
So is Donovan Edwards.
And so is Donovan Edwards. Yeah, so they're going to need a whole new backfield. But Michigan Smash Mouth football always finds a way to get that stud running back.
They do. And Alex Orji, the guy who's going to replace JJ McCarthy, is an absolute friggin' monster.
Yes.
So they're going to be good next year, no matter who the head coach is. And if Harbaugh does go, I think the OC that was the interim when he was suspended both times.
Yes.
Will end up being the head coach at Michigan. So again, hats off to that team for winning a championship. Good up on the Big Ten, winning the first and last one. It was a Big Ten sandwich with a lot of SEC and ACC in the middle. Since we're on the college football playoff rewind, I do want to say this. Please, no one in the viewing audience or listening audience, once this goes to podcast form, please do not think that the Orange Bowl was a reflection on the team that won the ACC and was undefeated. That was not the same Florida State team that played all season.
Absolutely not.
30 some odd players, the majority of them in the transfer portal. They did, of course, have the injuries to Jordan Travis and some other key players. And then their backup quarterback, who wasn't terrible, the minute they were left out of the thing, he left.
Yeah.
So Mike Norvell had a rough time. And when the coach of the opposing team says that was not the team that played all year, as Kirby said in his post-game presser, you really have to take stock in that. So all the people running their mouth that, oh, Florida State didn't deserve it, look what happened there. What happens in the games in the playoff doesn't equal does not equal qualifying. It doesn't equal earning the spot. Because I'll tell you this right now, I don't think Michigan, because if they would have been the 3 undefeated teams in the top, Michigan doesn't beat Texas in the Rose Bowl. You're talking about a Texas-Washington final.
That would a Michigan-Texas final probably would have been a little bit better, but Washington earned their spot. And also, not so much cycling back to the previous segment, but good on Sark and Norvell for already saying that they're staying right where they are.
Never mind that. Do you know who the second call they said was? Wasn't even to Dabo. It was to Dan Lanning at Oregon.
Yeah, and this is me thinking here. I got to think right now, especially after Saban leaving, Kirby is the face of college football head coaches for the job that he's done down in Georgia. Dan Lanning is right on his ass right now.
And so is Mike Norvell. If they come back and win the ACC again next year with an undefeated squad, he's got to be in that conversation. Because he rebuilt that program. That program had been shit since Jimbo left to go to Texas A&M. Now Jimbo's on the street, making a butt ton of money.
Yeah.
So, as far as the rest of it goes, of course, my boys didn't show up in the Cotton Bowl. So again, hats off to you and your Missouri Tigers. I'll tell you what, that defense is better than people gave it credit for.
I walked into a house full of Browns fans last week, and you saw the photos that I sent you, especially.
You mean the house I want when I grow up? Yeah, I saw it.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that right now.
No.
But you saw the group photo of the whole family. So I actually saw my cousin Elena's fiance, Allison. And so everyone's saying hi as they're all coming in, coming down the basement where we were watching the game and everything. And I just looked at Allison and I just said, I've got just one thing to say to you, and it's 3 letters. And she just looked at me and she goes, M-I-Z? And I just looked
nice.
Right back, go Z-O-U, and then you can actually hear the collective groan come out of my cousin Sean, his fiance Kelsey, and Elena themselves, because they all drove together. So we were not fun to be hanging around for about the first 10 minutes she got there.
No, and I wouldn't suspect you would be.
But I will say that the first 3 quarters of that game set college football back 40 years with how friggin' boring it was.
You know what, though? I like the defensive games because Ohio State's defense played really good that night. Here's what gets me. Did you hear reporters asking the Michigan players at the media day for the Rose Bowl about that game?
No.
The defensive back from Ohio who caught the interception to ice the Ohio State-Michigan game, he said, and I quote, "That's not the team we played. Don't look into any of that. That's not the team we played." So here's where I go with this. Are the Bulls overrated all of a sudden?
Absolutely, because you saw firsthand Florida State didn't get into the playoff. 35 guys decided not to play. Ohio State doesn't get into the playoff, deservedly so, and they get a whole bunch of guys either sitting or transferring. I mean, their quarterback announces he's transferring, shows up at his new school the day of the bowl game, who gets blown out by 45 points.
He's not going to make that much of a difference at Syracuse.
He's really not, but
I tell you what he is going to make a difference on is people thinking they have privilege for things. I said this to you the other day, and you about laughed in my face because that's all you can do. It wasn't Kyle McCord that asked about playing time. It was his daddy. I haven't said this word much since we've been on. Are you fucking kidding me? Seriously? Your dad? How fucking old are you, bro?
I mean, who does he think he is? Odell?
Oh, we got to talk. I can't wait to hit that in the next segment.
I already beat you to it.
Yeah, but yours isn't coming in as clean as mine is. Because I'm putting it right on my phone. So the long and short of it is, go to Syracuse, bro. It's a basketball school.
Boeheim's not there. It's not anymore.
Now, if he's going into journalism, they have one of the top J schools in the country.
Yes.
If you're going to play football, unless your name's Donovan McNabb, Jim Brown, or Ernie Davis, you ain't going to be shit.
Very, very true.
And the sheer fact that I can pull Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, and Donovan out in one sentence makes me feel really good about myself.
I mean, it's a little low-hanging fruit, but I mean, it's obvious because you should be able to pull those out within the first 15 seconds of thinking about it.
And considering they're the only three good players Syracuse has ever turned out, really.
Realistic.
How about this? How about this? John Carroll University has turned out a better football player than Syracuse outside of those guys. London Fletcher.
Yes. Super Bowl champion London Fletcher from
Was he?
those Rams.
I would say, was he on that St. Louis team?
He was on the 1999 championship team.
So, yeah, when we're talking that little school, John Carroll University turned out a better pro other than three dudes in the entire history of the school's football, have fun.
Oh,
and another thing.
Another thing with John Carroll. He was mentioned earlier. Don Shula.
Don Shula. Ohio really is the mecca.
Who the stadium is named after.
Is it the stadium or the field itself?
I think it's the field.
Because there's something stadium and Don Shula Field, right? Because I just saw something the other day. Somebody's playing there next year. Oh, Benedictine is playing there next year.
Very nice. My dad graduated from Benedictine, so we will definitely be doing that.
Former current coach, I believe he's the DC, Carter Wheelo, is the son of South Euclid Mayor Georgine Wheelo, who's just sworn in for her 6th term. And oh yeah, I know these things because they live 30 seconds from where my mom and I grew up out there. And South Euclid Hardware. But going back to the playoff real quick, I just want to hit on one other thing with the bowl season. Congratulations to Bo Nix ending a great career at Oregon with an absolute dismantling of Liberty. Other big parts of the bowl season, did James Madison win? I know Jacksonville State won their bowl game.
I believe JMU did, but that's a deep dive that I'd have to go back and
it's not
in halftime, and then
we'll talk about it in the toward the end there. So it was an interesting bowl season, Jim. You had the guys who sat out, you had the controversy with the playoff. I would say the final year of the 4-team playoff was not something we expected, but not terrible. But I will say this, it was tainted. Hit the other one.
Shut up.
I absolutely adore that. So the final segment in our first ever Wise Guys hat trick is the upcoming NFL playoffs. And I am wearing something tonight, ladies and gentlemen, that I've only worn one other time. And the only reason I wore it last time is because we did a show the day Jim Brown passed away. But that is the Big Rican Cleveland Browns logo t-shirt that I had made and didn't wear again because Bill Cosby was traded for. So let's start with the final game, if we could, the Monday night game. Because as I said on Facebook, James, Baker Mayfield has a division title before fucking Deshaun Watson. I almost said Lamar Jackson. So again, Baker, way to bring it back. I shared something to you the other day that had LFB behind it, and it was him. I didn't send the I meant to do a screenshot, not just a picture, because John asked me about it.
Mm-hmm.
There are only two quarterbacks in franchise history for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to throw for 4,000 yards, 20 plus touchdowns, and less than 10 interceptions. Do you know who they are?
Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield.
How about that? Meanwhile, the Browns are going to go to the Super Bowl with Joe fucking Flacco. That's hilarious. Dude, I'll pee myself, but we'll get to that game later. Jim, I'm going to make a pick here. I like Tampa.
I think as much as Philly is in an absolute tailspin, for them to be a 3-point favorite on the road, Tampa needing to win last Sunday to clinch the division, and they managed only a lousy 3 field goals.
It's the defense that is telling me right now.
Against Carolina?
Yeah, but Carolina's defense is very good, even though their offense is the most putrid thing I've ever seen this side of, I don't know, Ohio State and the Cotton Bowl. But I'm taking shots tonight, bro. I told you, no caffeine. I'm like bitchy. So, but here's why I think Tampa wins this game. Number one, it's at Raymond James.
You said you were taking shots. Oh, wait, wrong shots.
Yeah, well, it's still. Who cares? It's at Raymond James, number one. Number two, this is a different Tampa team than the one that played Philly early in the season. And three, Tampa's defense is playing at an elite level right now. They shut out Carolina, not because Bryce Young is nowhere near what should have been the first pick, but because their defense was dominant in that game. And listen, their offense did just enough. And that's all you need to do, because this isn't college football. You don't need style points. You need to win the game. And guess what? Baker's won playoff games.
Yes.
That was 3 years ago yesterday. Unfucking real.
I went back and watched that highlight package yesterday.
So did I.
So we're splitting here. I'm going Philly, you're going Tampa. Let's go to that late game on Sunday. Green Bay on the road at Dallas, your NFC East Division champion Dallas Cowboys. Dallas a 7-point favorite. Let's be honest. Dallas has surprised a lot of people with their play down the road, but Jordan Love over the second half of the season has been the best quarterback in football, including a guy named Joe Flacco.
Agreed. Jordan Love has been outstanding. The Mike McCarthy Bowl will have a lot of storylines that aren't the quarterback, but I will say this. Green Bay's pass defense over the year has been inconsistent at best.
Yes.
And Dak Prescott can pick them apart. I believe Dallas's defense will show up, and for the first time in a long time, we're going to be talking about the Dallas Cowboys playing on divisional weekend when they didn't have a bye. I think Dallas gets it done here. As much as Jordan Love has played phenomenally in his first season as a starter, replacing Aaron Rodgers, this Dallas team just feels different to me.
Yes. Yes.
There's no distractions. I mean, as much as I love Zeke, he was a distraction the last couple of years.
Yeah.
But I like Dallas here. And I like Dallas mostly because they're a little more battle tested. Remember, Green Bay didn't win the AFC North. Scarily enough, the team we're going to talk about next, and I think a better storyline game than even the Mike McCarthy Bowl.
Yes. Yeah.
Won the AFC North, a team that you and I picked during the draft
NFC.
to win the AFC North.
AFC. I'm sorry.
NFC. I'm sorry. NFC North. I apologize.
You got me saying it, damn it.
Sorry.
Webbit season, duck season, Webbit season.
So, real quick, we're calling customers yesterday. We swapped between branches, and I said to the one manager I was helping out, I said, "Hey, I'm going to go hunting for you," and then I sent the gif of Elmer Fudd. So, well, it fits, but but I like Dallas here.
Yes. I think CD Lamb right now is playing completely out of his mind. Um,
Shit,
I mean, especially the way that he went off on Sunday
he did. He really did.
in a game
Um,
that Dallas had to have.
agreed. So let's jump to the Midwest and the NFC North. Got it right that time. Champion, you're hearing me right. Detroit Lions hosting Matthew Stafford and the Los Angeles Rams. Jim, I can't pick this game because I can't say what I want to say because I think it would crush the city of Detroit.
I kind of don't want to pick this game
I don't either.
because you know me as a diehard Rams fan. Think about it. All three teams I follow are in the tournament.
Yes. But I
But
think Detroit would implode if
but
Stafford goes in there and slings it like he can.
but how could you not love the Detroit Lions right now?
Exactly. This is the toughest game to pick, not only because of personal biases, but also this may be the saddest outcome we've ever seen in an NFL playoff game. And it's not because of an end of a career type thing, but you're talking about a guy who gave 12 years and how many injuries
Yes.
to the city of Detroit. And he may end their best season since Barry Sanders was there.
Especially
Or,
especially now suiting up for the team that he left and won a Super Bowl with.
yes. And or the Lions could win their first playoff game since Barry Sanders was there and quite possibly end his career. Because there's no guarantee Stafford's coming back next year.
Yeah, I have a real distinct feeling that Stafford, if he loses this game, is going to hang it up. He's going to be 36, I want to say. Oh,
36 or 37, yeah.
yeah, owed 20 million next year. Um,
I mean,
and we'll bring up in the second half of the show, some of the quarterbacks, especially with some of the news that came out since we were last on the air with you guys. But yeah, I really don't want to pick this game. Um, but
then
I
let's not.
but I think there's a part of me that wants to say Los Angeles for the Puka Nakua factor, but I think Detroit's got the secondary that can be able to contain him enough. And I don't think the Rams have enough weapons outside of Puka to be able to kind of get this done. Whereas Detroit's kind of clicking on all cylinders right now. I'm on St. Brown injury aside.
Yeah, no, I feel the same. I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't pick a winner in this game because it would bother me. I'm a very sentimental person. His 12 years in Detroit, I mean, you remember the clip that everybody shows in his rookie year against the Browns when he separated the shoulder, said, "If you need me, I can throw the ball," throws the 2-point conversion to win the game, and runs off. And he couldn't even do anything. It was terrible. But again, I'm not picking this one. I'm sorry. We're not paid to do it, so I ain't doing it.
Next game, probably the quickest one we'll spend time on tonight. The Pittsburgh Hillbill Squealers going on the road, albeit we don't know exactly right now where that's going to be. Right now, slated to go up to Orchard Park and play the Buffalo Bills, your AFC East, your four-time defending AFC East champion, the Buffalo Bills, a 9.5-point favorite. Now, I say we don't know exactly what's happening here is because there's there's talk of a massive snowstorm that's going to be hitting Buffalo, where they could be relocating this game to Cleveland.
A massive snowstorm in Buffalo in January. Fucking shocker. Right, Kevin?
Right.
Joe Burrow's not playing.
What's that?
Joe Burrow's not playing. Um,
What?
but I think I can sum our feelings on this game up pretty easily. I think I can do it rather well. I think you'll agree with the way I'm going to do it. Fuck Pittsburgh.
The fact that they have that quarterback play and still weaseled their way in when Miami just had to do their fucking job.
What did I tell you about Miami at the beginning of the year?
We're going to talk about them next. Hold your horses on that one. But and I think we're going to go a little long on this segment here, especially because we got the marquee one still to come, and we've only got about 4 minutes left. But
so why don't we do this? Let's spend the last 4 minutes on the Miami KC game after you finish your thought, and then let's open the second half with a little bit more Browns coverage than we were going to do.
We can definitely do that because that's the talk of what everyone's talking about right now. But this one, if they play in Orchard Park, Buffalo wins this game going away. If this game gets moved to Cleveland, might be a little bit closer. I just have two concerns here with that. Is number one, Buffalo is a better team. Josh Allen is playing extremely well the last month. He's not turning the ball over nearly as much. My Bills homerism aside, but and shout out to my cousin Mike's wife, Catherine, who I met for the first time last week. Diehard Bills fan. I'm sorry you did not convince me to stay until kickoff last week, although you kept trying and trying and trying. We might do that if the Browns get knocked out and the Bills keep advancing further. But if this game gets moved to Cleveland, it's a totally different story because the game would actually then be played on grass, whereas the Bills normally play on turf. Could that actually neutralize something a little bit here? And the only other concern that I actually have is that if this game gets moved to Cleveland and there's bad weather that comes in during the game or slightly after, are all these hill jacks from Pittsburgh going to get trapped in Cleveland?
Dude, that would suck.
I could deal with the Buffalo people in town. Do we need that many more black and urine for the bandwagon, coming in here in the last 15 years since the Browns have sucked to begin with?
Yeah, no. Let me say this as I give the finger again to the Steelers. There's no way they fucking win. TJ Watt's the only player that's been ruled out for that game.
Yep.
No, this is over. And I'm going to say this. Buffalo going to cover. They're going to beat their ass.
Yeah.
Unless Josh Allen turns into Ben Roethlisberger circa 3 years ago.
Or last year where he threw the ball all over the yard and Cincinnati beat the piss out of him.
No. He's got to play as bad as Ben did in that game against the Browns in order to lose this fucking game.
Yeah.
So let's get to the final game that we're going to talk about in the first segment. Is we'll go a little bit deeper into the game because I also have a vested interest outside of the Browns in that game. Let's talk Miami, Kansas City in maybe the coldest game of the year and in many years in Kansas City, as the Miami Dolphins, who choked the shit away that was the AFC East, will ride into Kansas City, and they are a 6.5-point dog on the road in the playoffs. Jim, let me say this. The Miami Dolphins are to the NFL what the Atlanta Braves are to Major League Baseball.
Always
they
there.
Get a good team. Always there. And when they get a good team in front of them, can't win a fucking game. And listen, I know I hate the Braves. Braves are always here. They're a great team. I've said the Braves are going to win the NL East running away for years to come. There is not a person who picked them to beat the Phillies this year or last year.
But there's a reason that the Chiefs don't hang division championship banners. The Patriots don't hang, division championship banners. The Boston Celtics do not hang division championship banners. They hang world championship banners.
Agreed. And listen, this Kansas City team is they rested some guys the last week because they could not improve their seeding in the playoffs. So now you're getting a fully healthy Kansas City roster against a defense that only plays well in warm weather against shit teams. 6.5 is low. I have Kansas City by 2 touchdowns.
I'm starting to agree with that because they actually asked Tua what's the coldest game he ever played in. And he said it was like in the teens in high school in Washington. It's going to be 50 degrees colder than that by kickoff on
look
night.
Look at my face when I tell you this. They're going to have to peel his ass off the field. He's going to freeze to it.
The only thing that I'm concerned with is could there be the potential that this game could get moved, especially if it's that cold, where you might potentially have like electrical failures where they can't even get the heaters working on the sideline because those are inhuman conditions for players and fans.
I will say this. You're in the NFL. You've been playing NFL football for over 100 years. If they could play the Ice Bowl, where the refs' whistles were freezing to their lips like they were licking a pole in Christmas Story, get over it. You play with the big boys. I'm going to say it. This ain't the SEC where you can stay below Mason-Dixon all year. I am below Mason-Dixon all year. This is the big boys. You're making that kind of money? Strap up, put on some Under Armour, and play the damn game.
It's where the big boys play? What is this, WCW?
I was just talking about that movie the other day. So comes to the end of our first hat trick segment. We're going to get our 5-minute intermission in, and when we come back, we're going to dive deep into the last game on the slate for this weekend. That is the Cleveland Browns at the AFC South Division champion Houston Texans. Hey, where'd their quarterback go to college?
Shut up.
We'll see you guys in a few minutes.
It's hang on 1 second because I don't know if I've actually got the halftime show.
Oh, shit.
Since everything moved around.
Yeah. And then we got on late for 2 reasons. One, Bobby didn't want to go to sleep again. And 2, I got new earbuds. For everybody who can see that, the red ones, they're the Beats Studio buds, and I hooked them up, and I couldn't hear shit. So I had to take them off and hook them back up. Steph sending me a message because she's got the blue ones I usually wear upstairs. She goes, do you need the blue ones? I'm like, no, I got it. I'm good. Promise. Oh.
So we're going to fill here for a minute while Jim is still trying to actually find everything, because I think this is our, I should have this because this is not my first show with the new Chromebook.
Yeah, that was the end of your show, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk. I'll fill if I can and do a little coming attractions. So I started doing the TikToks for the episodes. I did this one at the dinner table with Bobby's artwork behind me. It was posted to TikTok this evening. Oops, sorry, I had the volume on because I was doing the soundboard. It was posted to TikTok at probably close to 6:30. It's had 737 views since 6:30. Steph showed me how to hashtag. Now on my TikTok bio is the link to the Wise Guys YouTube channel. Also is going to be the link to, it's coming back. It's coming back again, and that is the Big Rican on Sports podcast will ride again come February. I will do an in-depth New York Mets preview as my first episode. Who today agreed to avoid arbitration with Pete Alonso, setting a near record until Juan Soto broke it a few hours later of $20.5 million for his one season, and hopefully signed long-term. You see Soto got 31 from the Yankees?
Yeah.
Scumbag.
All right, I found it. Apparently I had moved it to the SD card as opposed to the hard drive.
Well, that makes sense.
We'll be back with you guys in a few minutes.
See you guys.
Damn it, we're still here.
You caught me mid chew.
uh Figure actually get back a little bit faster because the Blue Notes on borrowed time right now with the storm
Why?
rolling through.
Oh yeah, that's true.
We got 30 to 40 mile an hour winds gusting up to 60, and I have no idea when the power is going to go out. And hopefully it doesn't, but it's supposed to be like this until about Sunday at 1 a.m.
Well, hopefully our first topic of the second half of the show doesn't get interrupted. And let's talk about that game. The game 3 years in the making for the city of Cleveland as the Browns clinch their playoff spot and go south to Texas, to Houston, to play against the AFC South Division champion Houston Texans. So let's start with them. And let's start with the team that made the smartest move in the draft. And then trading their picks to get their defensive stalwart in number 3, but taking who I told you I thought was the best quarterback in this draft. And you told me I was being a homer. And oh, look, it's almost like I watch the dude every fucking week.
Yeah.
Notwithstanding, what a year for CJ Stroud.
Yes.
And let me tell you something. CJ Stroud going number 2 to Houston got Frank Reich fired because the Carolina owner is the one who picked Bryce Young. And then blamed Houston for dropping out of a 3-team trade. Oh, fuck you think you are?
They're already putting his name on the Offensive Rookie of the Year trophy, and they won't.
They did that
hand it
like
out
week
for another
12.
month.
They did that in like week 12.
Because remember, like week 8 or week 9, people were saying, is he in the MVP conversation?
And honestly, he should get some consideration. This is a team that, you know, Billy took to the playoffs a few years ago. And then when they decided to rebuild, he quit on. I still can't stand that son of a bitch. I will, however, wear my gear on Sunday because Flacco's at quarterback, not Deshaun. This is a good team. And I'll be honest with you, Jim, this is a team that's going to give the Browns secondary some fits because when they played the Texans a few weeks ago, CJ Stroud did not play. He was in concussion protocol. So it's a different animal with Stroud under center as opposed to Case Keenum, the once back up in Houston, then back up in Cleveland, now back in Houston. Does that give you a little pause that they didn't see Stroud a few weeks ago?
No, because remember, the entire defense was healthy when Amari Cooper, caught for over 250 yards.
No, agreed. I think the only thing that will change there is if Stroud can keep them on the field. Because Case Keenum was terrible that day. He was god-awful. So that's where I think the change is going to be. I don't think they're going to be able to put up the kind of offensive numbers they did against Houston the first time, only because Houston's offense will be on the field a little bit more.
I totally agree there, but the Browns can go out and get their doors blown off by Cincinnati last week when they're resting everybody and their grandmother, to where you're playing Jeff Driscoll off the scrap heap, who throws picks on his first 2 throws of the game. It was funny is because last time I remember Jeff Driscoll, he was actually playing for Cincinnati after Joe Burrow broke his hand in his first NFL game for the against the Browns. But you rested it. I think the only defensive starters that actually played were I think Okoronkwo got in there for maybe a quarter because he had actually just come off of injury and they kind of wanted to get him back in the fold. And one other person in the secondary, but everybody else predominantly sat. Taki's back healthy. JOK's back healthy. Miles is 100. Is going to be putting the women and children to bed and go looking for dinner. Amari's healthy. Flacco's got an extra week of rest under him. You get a couple of guys back on the offensive line. Um,
Putting the women and children to bed and going to look for dinner.
it's Joe Kane.
I'm waiting for the Miles Garrett's head on the T-Rex from Jurassic Park to come out because I haven't seen that yet.
Okay, answer this question right now. He doesn't have a sack in the final 2 months of the season. Is it Miles or Watt Defensive Player of the Year?
It's Miles. It's Miles. He was doing crossovers and blitzing.
Or do we
Of
actually think
course,
somebody like a Micah Parsons is going to jump in there and steal it?
if it's not Miles, the media hates Cleveland. That's the only answer. Again, I followed more this year, and I followed more after he went down. But yeah, Miles should be the defensive player of the year. If it's TJ Watt, I guess you can get away with that. But outside of those two, I don't think there's a player you can give it to. In my opinion, it's one of those two. As much as CMC should get more consideration for the MVP, he won't. Same thing with anybody who's not a pass rusher in this league. You're not going to get the consideration for the defensive player of the year. So let's talk about that Cleveland Browns offense that has been clicking on all cylinders in a way we haven't seen in a very long time under Joe Flacco. Jim, is it almost poetic that a guy who took the Ravens to a Super Bowl is playing the best quarterback the Cleveland Browns have seen since Baker Mayfield?
What's more amazing that you could end up having, depending on how things fall, you could have Flacco going back to Baltimore next week, or if a couple of dominoes fall, Joe Flacco was the quarterback for the first Cleveland Browns home game in 30 years next week.
Dude, that would blow my fucking mind.
If Miami wins and Buffalo wins, I believe no, I take that back. With the scenarios, if the Browns, Dolphins, and Bills win, the Browns are going to Orchard Park next week. If all three lower seeds, meaning the Squealers, the Dolphins, and the Browns all win this weekend, the Browns will be hosting, I believe, the Dolphins in the divisional round, because I believe Pittsburgh is going to end up going to Baltimore.
That is the only reason I want to see Miami win. Because I want to see the Browns host a playoff game.
But it also
at this
means
team.
it also means the Squealers have to win, and then it breaks my heart because they beat Buffalo to do it. Because remember, they reseed the playoffs every round, so it's not like the Browns being the 4 are automatically going to go, or being the 4-5 matchup are automatically going to go to Baltimore. Baltimore's going to get whoever the lower seed is. So unfortunately, it means that if Kansas City and Buffalo win and the Browns win, the Browns are going to Baltimore next week.
Yeah, if it goes chalk, then the Browns are going to go to Baltimore because the Browns are the favorite in that game in Houston.
First time they've been favored in a playoff game since 1994 against the Patriots.
Which they won that game, right? That was Belichick against
the last
what's his name?
Browns home. It was the last Browns home playoff game and the last Browns home playoff win. And then they got their doors blown off by Pittsburgh the following week.
That was Testaverde, right?
That was Testaverde because Kosar got released in '93, the year before, and that was also the year that Pittsburgh lost to Dallas in the Super Bowl. That was the Larry Brown game.
That was the Neil O'Donnell, who then went to the Jets and went 1-15 2 years in a row.
Yep.
Oh, good. Anyway, I like the Browns in this one as much as I love CJ Stroud. And I told you the other day the meme that people are sending out is the one of Wesley Snipes from New Jack City, and where he's crying, but he's got the gun pointed at the guy he's going to kill, and it says Brown/Ohio State fans when they realize the Browns have to eliminate CJ Stroud. I thought that was cool. I thought that was cool. But I think Houston did this, but they're a year away from being a team that you really need to fear. A
Now,
couple more pieces on defense, and I think they'll be fine.
I agree. I agree, and I think Will Anderson is a really good start. It's very much like, you know, Clowney and Watt, with their
Yeah,
heyday. I think it's a really, really good start for them because they got another stalwart on the other side of the line. I can't think of his name right now.
I know
But
what you're talking about.
Houston's got a lot of talent. I actually put this out there. Jacksonville goes from bottom feeder to playoff team. Houston goes from bottom feeder to division champion and playoff team. Could the Washington Commanders do it next year with 6 picks in the first 103, a new coach and regime coming in, a new ownership group, possibly a new stadium in the next couple of years, and the potential of Eric Bieniemy being your head coach? I'm not
And what was
saying,
their salary cap number?
and they're 90, and as it stands right now, with what they have under contract, they are going to be on, I want to say, close to 90 million under the cap for next year. I'm not saying win the NFC East because of the teams that they've got to go through to do it, but could they actually be the team that's picking in the top 10 that turns it around and gets into the playoffs next year? Because I think Chicago's a lot further away. I think New England is there. We're looking at least a 3-year rebuild for them. I think Atlanta is a mess right now.
If they do what I think they're going to do and draft Drake May, I don't think it's next year. I don't think Drake May is as good as people think he is. I think Drake May is the Will Levis of this draft. And we've seen that outside of putting mayonnaise in his coffee and eating bananas with the peels on it, Will Levis has about as much appeal as Ryan Tannehill.
Yeah, but there also wasn't a whole lot in Tennessee, which is why Vrabel got fired.
Yeah, but that's not on Vrabel. He's not the idiot who fucking traded A.J. Brown and all those boys either.
Yeah, I agree, but Levis is not as bad as people are making him out to be. It's not. It's he's definitely not as bad as Malik Willis.
So this just came over on Twitter. It popped up on me, and I'm going to go to ESPN to look at this. There are reports that the Philadelphia Eagles firing Nick Sirianni if they lose this weekend is in play.
I've been hearing that. And here's the funny thing. What I've actually been hearing is that the only reason that they do that is they want Belichick. Belichick would
Can I
get the
tell
record.
you?
Belichick would get the record. If he's 26 away, who's to say that Belichick doesn't get that record in 2 years with the talent that Philly's got?
I do, because the anchor of that team is done after this year. I don't think Jason's coming back again.
Yeah. And although there were reports today that Travis has no signs of retiring, my dad actually said apparently there's reports that they're fighting. It's like, oh, where are you seeing this? Because everything I'm reading is like they're on the verge of getting engaged.
That's not the report. That's not a report. That's just God honest hope.
Yeah. I saw a video at work yesterday that it was a reaction of Taylor seeing the screaming goat and to her own song and like doing the explanation of it, and she's just like us. She laughs every time.
She loves it.
Because that's the problem. You can't hear the song without hearing the goat. And then when you hear the goat, you can't help but laugh. And I don't care who you are. Every time you hear the goat, it's funny.
No, it absolutely is. I adore the goat too. Because you like to use it you think you're driving me crazy. Did we both just invoke the goat at the same time? Oh my
To
God.
quote Joey Styles, in stereo.
That's wonderful.
So let's actually
Let's debut our other new segment.
Well, we could do that here, but let's also talk something else that I actually mentioned at the
Okay.
very tail end of the previous before the break here. Um, we've got some big names that are going to command a lot of money that there's a very good possibility that they're not there next year. We could actually do our new segment that we still haven't come up with a name for, but we could do that about the coaches. But let's actually do a quick dry run here of what do we think is going to happen with a couple of names. Let me throw some names out at you here.
Well, can I explain what the segment's going to be
Sure.
like? This is basically going to be the wise guys version of fuck Mary Kill. Where we do it with, like, we're going to talk quarterbacks now, we're going to do coaches, and it's more going to be sign them one more year, get rid of them. So extend, placate, send them packing. So
And every week it's going to be something different. It's not going to
exactly.
necessarily be those three criteria, but we're going to throw 3 or 4 names out there. It's going to be a quick 5-minute thing. I'm not going to put a clock on it, but it's definitely going to be open and shut. We saw this on Facebook, or YouTube Shorts.
Yeah.
We like the idea.
So we're going to do the wisey spin on it, of course, because that's kind of how we roll.
Right.
Shoot, let's go.
Okay. First, Russell Wilson in Denver. Stay,
Kill.
go, extend.
Kill. He's gone. He's gone. And by the way, Sean Payton should be too.
I agree. I think he's out.
Let's stick with the same last name and say Zach Wilson in New York.
Can you back up the truck fast enough? And when I mean truck, I mean U-Haul.
I thought you meant to hit him with it.
It'd be an idea.
Yeah, right? No, you can't do that because then where are all the cougar moms going to go? I knew that was coming. Who else you got?
Derrick Henry in Tennessee.
Goodbye. Let me say this. I think wherever Vrabel lands in the NFL, if he does, Derrick Henry will sign with that team.
I think Derrick
Could you
Henry's
imagine Derrick Henry having Justin Herbert?
That would be impressive. Let's also keep in mind that Derrick Henry is going to break 10,000 yards next year. He's only 30, and he's still got a shot to maybe run down some of the greats like Gore. I don't know if he'll catch, Walter and Emmett, but he could definitely run some guys down here.
Jim, how about him in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts and all those boys?
That would be scary, but I don't know if his price tag is going to allow them to do that.
I think if Mike Vrabel, if Sirianni gets fired, if that had some validity to it, and Sirianni gets fired and Mike Vrabel takes the job, he would find a way to get there. And I think Howie Roseman would find a way to get him there.
I think Derrick Henry is going to end up either in a major Super Bowl contender, or he's going to go to somebody who's got a new coach where he can get a new lease on life. I mean,
You know where else?
Atlanta because they got Bijan.
No, do you know where else he'd look good? In red and pewter.
He could. Could you imagine the comparisons like to him and Mike Allstott?
With the speed of work done.
That could be interesting.
Here's one then. Let's stay on that line and let me ask you.
I know where you're going with this and bring it on because I was just going to ask you the same one.
Baker Mayfield.
I think he deserves a 2-year extension. You got to ink him now, regardless.
I was going to say 3.
Outcome says.
I was going to say 3. When you do something that no quarterback in franchise history beside Tom Brady, who brought you your second Super Bowl, because your defense brought you the first one, yeah, I think he should get 3 years. And then I think before we do the translator, we should talk about my nightmare scenario for the city of Cleveland.
Well, I say 2 because they don't need to go out and get a quarterback because they're in the draft now. And I don't think next year's class is going to be nearly as good. But here's also the other elephant in the room that nobody wants to talk about. They still have a lot of eggs in the basket of Kyle Trask.
I don't think they have as many eggs in that basket as they once did. I think with what Baker did this year, and I'm gonna tell you something, Todd Bowles, he's not afraid to stick with his guys. He stuck with Fitzpatrick, and he stuck with guys like Eric Decker and Brandon Marshall, who helped him just about get the New York Jets to the playoffs. He's going to stick with Baker. And Baker and look, it's a good offensive line. They've got a good running game, and they're going to pay Mike Evans.
I was going to say they've got the best receiver in football.
Oh, look, Jim, Baker with a number 1. What did we say for 3 years?
Let me throw a couple of other names out at you, a little off topic here.
Okay.
But then again, let me throw the most obvious one out there. Joseph Flacco. Here, I want what your heart says and what your head says.
My heart says keep him because a Kevin Stefanski offense needs a quarterback who will stay on schedule. My head says he's not making $230 million. And those two fucks in the owner's box have got to ride with him because they made the investment. No one is taking his contract. As good as he's played at times, he has been wholly inconsistent coming back from his suspension and his sitting down for an entire year because he took his ball and ran away. And for people who watch this and tell me I'm bitter because I'm a Baker bro, no, he literally quit on Texans and then started doing all his shit. So what I'm saying is the truth.
In the wake of the Russell Wilson thing, if he's potentially broken off and that contract extension has not even officially kicked in yet, that he signed last year, could you possibly see other teams that have those massive contracts out there where they may have controversies or early playoff exits, maybe restructure? Could you see the Browns trying to do something to maybe restructure Watson to save them with the cap? Because here's the thing, the Browns are 12 million under the cap now. Come next year, they are 19 million over it. And then you also think, look at the magic that Andrew Berry's done, but then you're still going to have to pay JOK, his contract extension because it's coming up, and then all of those other extensions like Miles, Nicholas Jamal Chubb, for your viewing pleasure, Amari Cooper, all of those extensions kick in next year.
See, now here's the thing about the Browns, and this is what we talked about when they made this deal. This was the fear. And I'm going to say this, and I'm going to sound bitter, but unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen who honestly believe he's in Cleveland because of being simpatico with Kevin Stefanski, remember the Browns were out until Jimmy Haslam okayed a fully guaranteed contract. He's not going to restructure it. He's already done it once. He's not going to restructure it again. He's a selfish son of a bitch. He's going to want his money.
But on the same token, we know that and not all of Russell Wilson's extension is guaranteed. Deshaun's is guaranteed, so they could.
This is what I'm saying.
They could release him now, and they're still going to They're still going to have a cap hit next year. But after the third year, they get some relief on that. So there is kind of an out after next season.
Yeah, but you got to remember the out you're talking about. There is going to be more dead money than they can handle.
Right. Does Baltimore, if Baltimore goes out and craps the bed next week, which would be another early playoff exit in the career of Lamar Jackson, do they go out and possibly restructure that deal? I'm not saying move on from Lamar, but be able to go out there and do something a little bit more cash conservative, so to speak.
I don't think so, only because you run the risk if you restructure it. And if I'm Lamar at that point in time, You didn't sign me, didn't sign me, didn't sign me. I went out and probably won another MVP. You want me to restructure my contract because you didn't really put anything around me besides an aging Odell Beckham and a beat up Mark Andrews and what's his name off the scrap heap, Dalvin Cook. Come on. No, the Baltimore Ravens are not going to touch that contract extension for one reason and one reason only. Tyler Huntley's your answer.
So
the nightmare scenario is the Browns get to the Super Bowl. That is the absolute nightmare scenario for the city of Cleveland. Because they're going to have to sell the fucking team. Because there is not a single Browns fan that will be on the Deshaun Watson bandwagon if this team makes a deep playoff run with the old white man off the couch. From an old white man on a couch.
From a 38-year-old guy who was on a plane, that's going to go down as the photo of the year in Cleveland sports. But and now you've actually got a controversy here because he's only got a couple of years left in the tank, but you're also still paying the guy that he's replacing still the better part of $120 million over the next 3 years.
If not more. This season, as phenomenal as it has been for the Cleveland Browns, I mean, they've won 11 games only for the fifth or sixth time in franchise history.
Yep.
Second time since they've come back.
Double-digit wins for Stefanski in 2 of the last 4 years.
Yeah. As Stefanski, what is it? He's close to passing Marty Schottenheimer.
He's very close, yeah.
And that's saying something.
He's already your coach of the year. I don't give a damn what.
He's not. DeMeco Ryans is a rookie head coach with a rookie quarterback and a defense that last year averaged giving up 28 to 30 points a game. DeMeco Ryans is going to be the NFL coach of the year. If it's not him, it's Motor City Dan Campbell.
Kevin Stefanski has got the number one defense in football and he lost his all-pro, all-world running back in the second game of the year, and he's on a fourth-string quarterback, and he got the team to 11 wins to where they were still in the hunt for the number one overall seed until the second last week of the year.
I don't disagree with you, but it's the first part of that statement you said, the number one defense in football. DeMeco Ryans didn't have the number one defense in football. He also had a rookie quarterback. I love Kevin Stefanski. That trumps it.
I'll clear this up real quick. The NFL Coach of the Year is going to be Jim Schwartz as a coordinator. It'll be the first time.
I agree with you there.
Are ever going to win.
I agree with you there. If it's not DeMeco Ryans, it's going to be Dan Campbell. And the only reason to be Dan Campbell, who's the 2 seed in the NFC. The Detroit Lions. Bless you. Oliver sneezing. You should have seen them today. There was a cat outside the window, the big window. He flipped shit. So I got one more for you.
Go ahead.
And this is a biggie. Jared Goff. If they get blown out at home by Matthew Stafford and the offense can't get on track, do they move on from Jared Goff?
Absolutely not. It's okay. Because they got near the playoffs last year and lost out on a tiebreaker with Goff. And they actually were in the running for the number one seed in the NFC. And there's a lot of people thinking that there's only 2 teams that will take down San Francisco in the NFC. One is Dallas and the other is Detroit.
I don't think anybody's taking down San Francisco, to be very honest with you.
I think if somebody gets in Brock Purdy's, face and rattles his cage, Myles Garrett, you can definitely do something with their offense because you have to lean a little too much on CMC. And then that's where you get 7, 8, 9 guys in the box, and you can help neutralize that a little bit.
Yeah, but the question remains, if you got to put 8 in the box to stop CMC, who's covering Brandon Ayuk and Debo and Kittle? And that's the problem with San Francisco. They built their roster really well.
Yeah, but the difference is the Browns have the best overall defense in football. Detroit, but far and away, has the best secondary in all of football.
I got you. Oh no, I don't disagree. Imagine that secondary with the defensive back a couple of years ago out of Ohio State. What the hell was his name? He's the number 3 pick. Why don't I remember this? He's the one who picked up the fumble against Clemson. Son of a bitch. It's going to come to me when I'm sleeping, I'm telling you.
So, real quick, let's do our FMK with our coaches here. So, Mike, why don't you lead us off?
And we're going to start with where we think they're going to land, or we'll give an option of if they're going to get a job this year at all. And let's start at the top with the most popular name, Jim Harbaugh.
If he doesn't go back to Michigan, I think he actually takes a Chargers job.
I think he takes a Chargers job. What's he got left to prove up there? He flipped the narrative. He won a national title. He did something Bo Schembechler never did. What's left to prove at Michigan?
Throw another name out with as chaotic as everything's been changed around. Kirby Smart.
Kirby's never leaving Georgia. He would be, listen, he would be eternally stupid if he left Georgia. Eternally stupid.
Because there was talk that the Falcons were going to court him.
I was going to say, unless he leaves Georgia for the Falcons. Arthur Smith get another job?
Certainly not as a head coach.
He going to drive routes for his daddy?
He'll get some sort of coordinator or assistant job or something, or he'll go back down to college or something like that. But remember, Charlie Weiss was a head coach in Notre Dame and then ended up being a coordinator somewhere else before he actually took the Kansas job.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, but Charlie Weiss has Super Bowl rings.
As a coordinator, not a head coach.
No, agreed. But Billy was using his playbook for 20 years. Let's see. Coaches on the move. Mike Vrabel.
The Ohio State University.
You really think he's good? They're going to fire Day?
I really think now that his name is opened up and they know that their chances are a lot better of landing him with Mayo taking the New England job, I think it is realistically in play.
I tell you what, and I can't believe I'm saying this. I agree. But he has to bring in an offensive coordinator that is top of the line. He has to. And then who's your hire there?
Let's flip that on its head. If he doesn't want to go back to Ohio State, does he take one of the other, let's call it for the sake of argument, the other 5 openings around football? Because again, we're still thinking with the 8 openings that there are, one's already been filled and the other 2 are basically the ink's not quite dry just yet.
Well, it looks like the O coordinator in Seattle is going to end up somewhere else.
So you've got so just as a quick refresher, in no particular order: Carolina, Washington, New England, Seattle, Atlanta.
Take New England out of there. They have their coach.
Well, again, I'm actually just throwing out the 8 openings that there were up until earlier today. Tennessee,
Washington.
already named them.
Okay. The Raiders, technically.
Raiders, and the Chargers.
And the Chargers.
So the Raiders' job is essentially Pierce's at
which
that
it should
point.
Be.
The Patriots have already filled their job, so technically there's still 6 out there. We've already given our thoughts that Bieniemy should get the job in Washington.
Agreed. So let's talk about
5 other openings out there, and the Chargers one is still the most appealing.
It really is. But I think we both can agree that Jimmy's going to land there. And if he doesn't, I think they're going to go with an offensive coach. Here's something interesting. I think Vrabel could be up for a rebuild.
He's young enough.
He is young enough. Carolina is an interesting thing because then he can put his stamp on it, and he would bring that smash mouth power football that he played at Ohio State under John Cooper to Carolina to protect Bryce Young.
You mentioned that, and I like that idea. But what about him coaching Bijan Robinson in Atlanta?
I think Atlanta's got to go somebody for offense because the biggest problem with Arthur Smith was he did not take advantage of the offensive players he had. He was drawing up plays for schmucks instead of Bijan Robinson and Kyle Pitts. Vrabel's going to want to run the football. Atlanta's O-line's not built for it. And I don't think they have cap space enough to do anything about it.
I don't think Atlanta's that far away, even though Desmond Ridder is certainly not the answer, but
They have to go quarterback in this draft.
they're going to have to, absolutely.
And the quarterback I think that would fit there, scarily enough,
Drake
is
May.
the one who's going to end up. No, it's Jaden Daniels.
I think Jaden Daniels is going to end up in New England.
I do too. Drake May's going to Washington. I mean, the top of the draft is almost guaranteed. The only thing we're waiting for is if Chicago does something absolutely fucking stupid and doesn't trade the first pick.
Yeah.
Because I'm sorry, I said this to Alex today. Him and I were talking about it. You have not attempted to build around Justin Fields. And with the garbage you have given him, he has put up numbers. My
And
God,
look-
if you built around him and gave him a freaking coach who knew what the hell he was
And
doing.
look at how they came on at the end of the year, too.
Exactly. This is what I'm talking about. You have given him horrible talent around him. Do they have a top 50 running back? With as putrid as their offensive line is, by the way, DJ Moore had over 1,000 yards receiving from Justin Fields.
And all that despite even losing a little bit more capital with the failed Chase Claypool experiment.
He's terrible.
He wasn't that great in Pittsburgh either.
No one's good
Just
in
made, he
Pittsburgh.
was just made to look good because he was paired up alongside Juju.
Who was terrible once AB left.
Right.
Which again, it's almost like I said, like you were Nostradamus with that. 3 things I've said. Juju's not a number one. Chase Claypool's not a number one. And Gleyber Torres is not a big league shortstop. Oh, look.
I will say this. We actually brought it up earlier that you said that you don't think Kevin Stefanski's winning coach of the year. I think we all can agree, however, that Andrew Berry is going to be winning executive of the year, and I don't think it's going to be close. The fact that he actually got that kind of talent, that kind of production out of Amari Cooper for essentially a 5 and actually got the best kicker in football for a 7.
I don't disagree with you. Barry should have won executive of the year he put the roster together when they won in 20. But, whatever from there. I got one more for you. And I think this is interesting. And no one's talking about it. What if Belichick goes to Dallas and becomes the GM and takes it off of Jerry's hands? Could you see him doing that?
That could be fun.
Because the roster's basically built. Bill was never good at drafting talent, but Bill found it to bring in. I give you Patrick Chung and Rodney Harrison and guys like, who thought Wes Welker and Julian Edelman were going to be the studs they end up being?
Look at their now current head coach. Gerard Mayo was a first-round pick, a former All-Pro, a 2-time Pro Bowler.
Yeah, and
a
don't
defensive
forget.
Rookie of the year.
And don't forget, he also drafted the best tight end in the history of the game.
Aaron Hernandez.
I mean, how did he end up that way when Tebow was taking him to Jesus every week? Oh, I got a better one than that. Did you cut Bobby doing that yet?
Say that again.
Did you cut Bobby doing that yet?
No, that's going to be probably Sunday when I got really nothing else to do, assuming I have power.
We brought up Aaron Hernandez, which is entirely
This is the obligatory Jim and Mike are fucking around with the soundboard part of the show, ladies and gentlemen. But
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Speaking of fucking around with the soundboard, Michael.
It's band practice time.
Would you shut up and just push the button already?
No! Please, no! 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 No!
It's the YZ translator on the Wise Guys Sports Show.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the president, Michael, what is his last name on The Office? Oh my God, Steve Carell,
Michael Scott,
and
Rodney Ruxton.
And Rodney Ruxton can mean only one thing: the YZ translator, the segment of the show where James and I give each other a name or an entity inside or outside of the sports world, and we think of the first thing that popped into our heads. As we've told you before, some of the highlights include one of our best off-the-rails segments from 2023, when we told Patrick McGuire a joke that turned into the funniest damn thing this side of Jim's dating life that we laughed at all of last year. We've called Baker Mayfield was called Mo from the Three Stooges. We have Brett Favre being compared to Boss Hogg, Kyrie Irving, the douche canoe, and still my personal favorite, Victor Wembanyama getting blown into Lake Michigan. So I normally start us off after I do the long-winded intro. And James, I'm going to start you with someone not in the sports world, but someone who has made a fool of people we do not like. And Jim, your first name in the YZ translator is Hunter Biden.
Oh, it was so good to just watch him walk out on Barney Rubble.
Wait, did you compare Marjorie Taylor Greene to Barney Rubble?
Stealing that straight from Keith Olbermann.
That's hilarious.
I listen to Countdown every morning. So she's been called Marjorie Trader Green, Marjorie Dumbass Green, Barney Rubble Green. Oh, by the way, for the record now, his official name is I got to get this right. Hang on. Please stand by.
I had to go with him. I'm sorry. When I heard that he walked out on her, I'm like,
his official name is Loser Dementia J. Trump.
Did you hear the guy from Maryland go off the other day? Did Olbermann talk about that?
Yes. Actually, no, he didn't actually do a show yesterday to bring that up because I think he's got like some sort of vocal issue. So his last show for the week was Thursday. He'll probably bring him up early next week. But
yeah, probably.
Oh, how nice was that? Just to watch all of them backpedal. And the second he saw that she was speaking, just get up and walk out.
Well, that's because she showed another picture of his junk.
Well, it's also that, we can have him testify today. Where is he? And then he shows up and nobody wants to ask him anything.
Yeah, stupid. Who you got for me, boss?
Michael, along kind of, I don't want to say along the same line, but another one outside of the sports world who took umbrage with somebody in the sports world. And your boy's caught in the crossfire here. No, it's not the Juggies, but it's Jimmy Kimmel.
fucking legend. My favorite part of that was when he said the only 2 A's Rogers ever got in his report card were in his name. That was wonderful. And listen, I honestly could care less what people think about everything that went down a few years ago, but shut the fuck up. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. Hit it. Hit it. Hit it. Hit it.
At the very least, the best thing to come out of the whole ordeal is that it effectively terminates Rogers' contract with McAfee, which in turn gets Rogers essentially fired from ESPN.
Probably. Although McAfee can do no wrong. Did you see what he did the other day? He took a shot at the guy who oversees all the shows and all the networking.
Yeah, but here
And the next day put up a picture of that guy's boss hanging out with all the boys from the show.
Yeah, but I got a feeling that's going to end up blowing up in his face badly. I mean, Olbermann has definitely spent a couple of days on him already this week. He now refers to him as shirtless Pat.
Well, unfortunately,
Sleeveless.
The network needs sleeveless Pat more than they need anybody else right now, and we both know it. And the scary part is, so does Pat.
Michael, your second name for me tonight.
Jim, we're going to go back into the sports world, and I'm going to give you one because I would love to hear your take on this gentleman. Jim, your second name is Nick Saban.
Highly controversial take. The greatest coach in the history of football, pro or college.
I don't think that's that controversial, to be honest with you.
He's done. Think about it. Bill won 6 titles. Nick won 7. Bill won 6 at the same school. Bill had Tom Brady. Brady leaves. They have 3 losing seasons in 4 campaigns. Saban won 10 games for pretty much your kid's entire life, it seemed. Their entire lifespan. And the names
my older 2.
and the names switch over every 2 to 3 years. In arguably the toughest conference in college football.
And let's say this. He did not have elite quarterback play until the last 4 or 5 years.
No.
Because I don't care.
Jalen Hurts was not elite.
McElroy
was not elite. He got a team to within overtime of advancing to the national championship game with Jalen Milroe.
Never mind that. He got a team to the first playoff with Blake Sims.
Yes.
So, yeah, no. So I don't think that's that controversial, honestly. I think that's one that can be argued and backed up with statistics.
Say what we will. Look at it. I mean, we're going to compare Belichick and Saban until the end of time at this point, until somebody starts clipping their numbers. But highly controversial on the field, especially with scandal and everything like that, or biases or whatnot. But 2 of the best human beings, some of the smartest, most entertaining guys. Because Saban, just with some of his charity work and some of the other stuff, I mean, I don't know if you've heard the Stephen A. tributes that he's did. That he doesn't get asked to do a whole lot of things, but he actually got flown out to and asked to do a thing by Nick Saban a few years ago. And Belichick, the worst interview in the world after a game or even before it. But when he sits down and breaks down film or some of the stuff that you've seen in the documentaries, very, very underrated as one of the most entertaining guys in football. And one
Did you hear
of
the joke
too.
Did you hear the joke he told at the beginning of the press conference? Wow, I haven't seen this many cameras here since we signed Tebow. What the fuck?
I actually would have gone a little bit further. We haven't seen this many cameras since we were walking through against the Rams.
Emotional damage.
No. You level up for that one.
Yeah,
You level up for that one. Oh wait, yeah, dude, that was awesome. And I'm a
Michael,
little pissed I didn't think of it.
Michael, your final name in the YZ translator is we're still pretty close to being on format here. We're gonna
Yeah.
keep it under 2 hours. Um, your hero, my hero, everybody's hero, Joseph Flacco.
That is one bad motherfucker.
You shut your mouth.
I'm just talking about Flacco. Dude, I want the shirt that says Flack around and find out. That
If he gets signed for next year, I'm buying that shirt and I will be wearing it most of the time during the NFL season on these very airwaves.
I will tell you that I will support that, and I will buy the fat man size of that one because I
I was
want
going
that
to
as
say,
well.
if that happens, I will try and order that and get you one as well.
So I want to close this episode out with I want to give our fans in Cleveland an absolute nightmare to go to bed with tonight. And it's not because I don't love you, because you know I do love you in Cleveland. I adore the city. I adore the fans. But I'm going to give you your nightmare scenario, and then we're going to hang it up for the evening. Joe Flacco brings the Cleveland Browns without Deshaun Watson to the Super Bowl. And they lose to Tampa Bay and Baker fucking Mayfield.
Never happened.
They would never happen. But you think they'd burn the city down if the Browns won a Super Bowl? Could you imagine if Baker won a Super Bowl before them? And God forbid beat them?
Here's a nightmare. Well, you talk about Cleveland's nightmare. Let's talk about the rest of America's nightmare that the Cleveland Browns have a puncher's chance to win this whole damn thing. You can put them against any team in this tournament. Oh, yeah, they've beaten the two teams that are actually taking the week off.
Let me be very clear about this. I don't think America would hate that. I think America would love that because this country loves an underdog story.
America will not be able to handle that because you will not be able to shit on the Cleveland Browns franchise anymore.
Until he's out of town, you will.
If he's out of town and if they get to, where are they? Vegas this year?
Yes.
If they get to Vegas, even if they don't hoist the silver, if they get to Vegas, first of all, he's getting his own parade. Number two, they'll probably throw a damn parade downtown anyway. But they're still a very good team, even if he doesn't come back next year. Because keep in mind, they were still 5-1 with Watson.
It
And
means they were 6-4 without him.
And 4 of those wins have been with Mr. Joseph Flacco.
Agreed. Here's why my scenario is a nightmare for the city of Cleveland. Okay. And then we'll hop off. It's a nightmare for the city of Cleveland for one reason and one reason only. And it pains me to say this, and it's not because I'm a Baker bro, but I would have felt this way if the Browns would have gotten to the Super Bowl the year Pittsburgh did and lost to the Cowboys, and Bernie would have had to play because Aikman got hurt. You gave up on a guy who gave you everything for this dude. The guy who gave you everything did what he wanted to do for you, for somebody else who had just won one and did it against you. That would bother this fan base more than anything else. I don't think an 0-16 season would bother this, or 0-17 season would bother this fan base as much as if that happened. because then everybody who wanted him out of town's got to go. He really was hurt. The one thing people from Cleveland don't like to be told is "I told you so."
That's actually very true.
And I love all these. I do. But if this dude has a run of success in Tampa, not only did they lose the trade, they have screwed up worse than I would put this like with Brandon Weedon and Johnny Manziel if that happens.
It would be the letter all over again.
No, only because the letter. You're talking about Dan Gilbert's letter, or you're talking about LeBron's?
Yeah.
Oh no, you're right. It would be like Dan Gilbert's letter when he promised a championship, and LeBron won one 2 years later,
And he won
and the
2 of
Cavs were
them.
in the lottery. Yeah,
Yeah.
no, this would be just like Dan Gilbert's letter. And by the way, it'd be worse because there are players that were in the NFL during that time. I sent you the podcast thing. That was from he went to Ohio State. He was in the league till a couple years ago. He was the MVP of the national championship game. It was Tyvis Powell, who was in New Orleans. They set him up. There are people inside the NFL that feel they set him up. It took the only kick once his name made 2 years ago to beat the guy week 1. And then he went out and won a division title. And the only reason we can have this conversation is because Joe Flacco is going to lead this team deep into the playoffs.
We hope.
I got a good feeling. Remember,
if they get over the hump tomorrow and they beat Houston, watch out.
that's going to be the one because Houston's that sneaky team with the young core. Houston is the Browns of 2020. They don't know any better.
Right.
They're playing with Houston of any team in the playoffs is playing the house money, which is scary.
Because very, very quickly before we jump off, let's look at the other 6 teams. Baltimore always flames out early, and also how much rust are they going to have, with that 1 seed. The 2, Buffalo, inconsistent at times. The 3, Kansas City, not the Chiefs of years past. Certainly not the one who's won 2 out of the last 3. Houston's the 4, the Browns are the 5. Miami, we've already discussed, and then Pittsburgh's a done deal. So you like the Browns there with that defense. That is a Baltimore Legion of Boom type defense that you get decent quarterback play. Oh, yeah, your quarterback play has been the second best in all of football for the last month and a half.
Yeah, no, this is the team no one wants to play. Being brutally honest, no one wants to see that team. No one wants to see Myles Garrett acting like fucking Kyrie Irving or Donovan Mitchell, who, by the way, had a great game in Paris, by the way. You don't want to see them.
Let me play what if here very, very quickly. What if Nicholas Jamal Chubb does not get hurt in the opening series against the Pittsburgh Squealers? Are we talking about the Browns having a week off to be able to prepare for some schmuck to come into Brown Stadium next week?
Yes. But here's the reciprocal to that. I don't think Billy gets hurt if Chubb is healthy. Because they wouldn't have leaned on him like that.
I agree.
So I will say this, and then I'll take my lumps for it later probably. The Browns are the 6 or 7 seed if he's healthy all year.
I think they're still going to be a good team tomorrow. I still think not tomorrow. I think they're going to be the better team tomorrow. I'm not going to give a score prediction. I do think they win outright. I know for a fact they're going to cover because it's only a 1.5 point. But I also think that this is a team that's also primed, even with their salary cap issue, to make a decent run here over the next couple of years, even with Deshaun Watson, because of all the talent that's there. And he's not going to be worthy of a $240 million contract, but he's certainly decent enough to be a starter to get you wins to be able to get there and then lie on the defense because Chubb is going to be the guy that the offense runs through, which is how it should have been.
The question now becomes, though, is yes, you're absolutely right. The salary cap is going to take away a lot of players. They've got a very, very small window because of that contract. And scary as it may sound, Jim, and I hope this is not the case, this might be the 1 year. Because like you said, right now for next year, they're 18 million under the cap. When it readjusts, they're 19 million over. They need players to take less money in a sport where you're not guaranteed a 10 to 12-year career.
And
not many guys are going to do that.
A lot of the guys that you've relied on the defense, Zadarius Smith, Shelby Harris, you got a couple of guys in the secondary.
Ronnie Hickman.
Ronnie Hickman who's a 1 year deal. All these guys on 1 year deals. Okoronkwo's he was a 2 year deal. Dalvin Tomlinson, 1 year deal. So you got to get some of these guys in here. Although, let them win tomorrow, and then let's see what happens next week. A lot of these guys are going to want to come back maybe for one more run at this thing with a fully healthy roster.
Yeah, but they may want to do that, and that's, I think, a very smart thing for them to do. The problem is their argument's going to be on a prove-it deal, I just helped anchor the number 1 defense in the league that got you deep into the playoffs. I want my money.
Which is true. So you'd probably see some of the other guys, not so much like Miles or Denzel, because their extensions haven't even kicked in yet, but you're going to definitely see some other guys try to restructure to free up some room.
I think they're going to have no choice, but I also believe that the guys that will restructure are the ones that don't make enough money for it to matter. Because Myles Garrett will never leave Cleveland. On top of that, Myles Garrett is so beloved because now he's throwing some of that money at the Cavs.
But we can talk about that in May and June after the draft and free agency open.
What do you say we just, let's do it now. We'll be on next Saturday night.
Damn it, now I got to read the graphic.
Take 5 minutes next Tuesday. So you will hear from Jim with the Sports Note and a preview of our show on Instagram. You will get my TikTok hopefully before Friday. I want to thank my wife for helping me with that, as the hashtags that we put on there have gotten us to, wait, I will tell you how many views in just a second. TikTok has...
The only way that we are not on next Saturday is if they put the Browns on the Saturday night game.
And we'll probably be on Friday.
Yeah. Although I think maybe next week, since it's only 2 games per well, then again, no, it would still be
Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah.
Depends if it's Browns Baltimore, there'll be a Saturday night game probably. Or no, there'll be the Sunday night game. 740 views of that. So hopefully we start turning it into some. Yeah. So we will see you guys in a week. Jim, thank you. We did go 2 hours, but I think it's because we were so content heavy. This wasn't us going off like we normally do.
But we've got our format. We actually just need to kind of clean up the second half of the show a little bit. But again, we did not go off the rails. We don't have any kind of segments for me to clip. And it's also because we went so loaded with how everything else was with the playoff preview. It's been
such a big week. It's such a big week too. I mean, come on, who saw this coming? I mean, seriously, who saw it coming?
You realize we didn't talk a single lick of hockey this week. We didn't talk a single lick of wrestling. We talked 30 seconds worth of baseball, and we didn't talk basketball until about 2 minutes before.
And we only talked 30 seconds of baseball and 15 seconds of basketball because we needed to fill. And I made a comparison because Myles Garrett's a part owner of the Cavs. It's not like we set out to do it. We'll get some more of that next week, but we will talk to you guys in a week. Have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Go Dogs.
Go Browns.
I don't mean the ones up north of me.
Go Browns. Enjoy the playoffs, everybody. Go Browns.
See you guys.
Bills Mafia. And,
See you guys.
And whose house? Rams house.
Oh, definitely Bills Mafia. Screw the goddamn Steelers.
Night, everybody.
See ya.